Hi, I'm Eric Nasa with Newsshooter.com, and man, is it hot today. It's mid-July, we're in full swing in summer, and I'm dying. So you're probably gonna hear the AC kick on, because if I don't have that on, I'm basically gonna sweat to death in front of you right here on camera. In for review, we have the Fiilex RGBW light. This is called the Matrix II, and it's a hue and saturation controllable light, so you're gonna have all 360 degrees of the color wheel, as well as your tungsten and your daylight equivalent. I believe it goes from 2800 Kelvin all the way to 10,000. So a very versatile light, super punchy, and like I said, it's very saturated, and with that wide beam angle, you get some really great coverage. Really great for backdrops as well. If you wanna just change it up, you can always have a green or orange, red, whatever, you name it, 360 degrees on the color wheel, and you can just dial it in super easy. All right, enough about this intro. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the features of the Fiilex RGBW Matrix II. The build quality is really nice on the fixture. I like the metal housing, the handle's nice, everything just feels really solid. It really is designed for a lot of hours of use on set. To show the durability of the Matrix II RGBW, Fiilex decided to do a little kick test. Ouch. Don't do this at home, folks. It looks like it survives it pretty well. All it really needed was to put its bumpers back in place. On the yoke, you have a very nice, very effective lockdown, and it's ratcheting, so if it gets in a funky position and it's hard for you to control or operate, you can move it. And once it's loose, I mean, it's very loose, the whole fixture will tilt. But when you tighten it down, it really is solid. It does not go anywhere. On all four sides, there's a slot to attach a softbox. I highly recommend getting the speed ring, and it just pops right into the spring-loaded holders. Fiilex also offers a Fresnel attachment, as well as barn doors that attach to the front. On the back of the Matrix II RGBW is where all the controls are. While the fixture is plugged in, you have access to the menu still without it being powered up. So that's kind of nice in case you actually want to get into the menu, make some settings, but without having the output on. In other words, maybe in a discrete way. So to access the menu, you have this lock and menu button. Now, you can't just press it once, it won't go into the menu, nothing happens. You have to quickly double punch it, then you get into the menu. Now, all the way to the left, you have DMX add, CCT mode, oops, it left me, CCT mode and HSI mode. Now, on the next page are mostly DMX oriented features that you're not going to be able to use. So you'll get this DMX control only connect DMX warning in all three of these modes. So you only have to worry about accessing the first page, where you'll be able to here add a DMX channel. Now this is, of course, if you're going to use a DMX. And go all the way back. And then here is CCT mode. This is basically changing your color temperature for the fixture. You can go to 2800 all the way to 10,000. So you can see that spread here. I'll just turn it on. Also worth mentioning is the fan on the back is virtually silent. If you're going to use the Matrix II RGBW with other lights that might have some color shift or some spikes, you can take green away, which actually adds magenta all the way up to 1/4. And you can also go plus all the way up to 1/4. This is very handy when you're mixing the fixture in with other lights. Now on the main display, you'll see what settings you have. The display is kind of small. It is a little hard to see when it's on a light stand or just mounted up high above eye level. You have to tilt the fixture to see the back. And again, the intensity is just a very simple knob. You just turn it up and down. It's pretty touchy too. Like, look how barely turn it, and it really does its thing. One thing I noticed that you kind of have to get used to is when you're dialing in your color temperature, like I'm going to go ahead and go to, I'll just go to 7,000, and I want to make it 5,600. So you see how touchy it is? You really gotta go slow. Oh, see, I went past it. There. You gotta go really slow because it is super touchy and it will jump really quickly with just a very slight turn. This is nice if you want to get to one of the other side, like 10,000 or 2800 really quickly. But once you're there, you just got to dial it in and let her go. I first saw the Matrix II RGBW at Cinegear, and the Fiilex representative really explained well the LED technology. So I'm going to share that interview with you now. What kind of LEDs are behind this diffusion?
There are 4 different LEDs in front of that, and each LED draws about 90 watts. So 4 of them together, about 300 plus watt is in the range. Each LED is, we use the similar LED in our very famous P360 platform. So 4 of them, a lot of people are asking for, well, how can you create a light more powerful? Can you put multiple P360 together? And that's what we did, put 4 of them in a box.
And they have a lens, right, that's going over the LED?
Yeah, so there's a half-ball lens, it's made of glass. I think one of the things that we do very well is what we call the spectrum recipe. So on one hand, we are very good at hardware, which is LED hardware that able to pack so many LED chips together, drive it at a very high voltage or power intensity through the LED. On the other hand, a lot of people, I think in the industry, will talk about is how nice is your spectrum. What we have is not a bicolor LED. It's a continuous tuning LED for the color tunability. On the other hand, even for this particular RGBW model, I think today a lot of people in the industry talking about this RGB panel light. They would look well. However, when you capture the image through the camera, the colors shift completely. Yeah. And part of the challenge in that, for that is a lot of these panel LED on the back end, their chip would just have 4 or 5 LED chips. So you have 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 white. And what we have with this kind of cluster LED together, we actually have multiple red, multiple blue, and multiple phosphor. So we expand the red spectrum, we expand the blue spectrum, and we also expand the white spectrum. With that, we would able to reflect much truer color for the image as well.
Well, since we're on the topic of CRI, let's go ahead and take a look at the test results that I got using a Sekonic C700U. Let's start off with the Matrix II RGBW set at 3200K. It's important to understand that these ratings and these tests don't actually tell you everything. It's not the full picture, but it does give us a good idea of where these fixtures stand. The average CRI is 94.5. That's found in the RA, the very first block on the top, with the extended CRI of 92.28. Now, one thing I did notice is the red is a bit low. Overall, this is a very good CRI rating. As far as the actual Kelvin temperature of the light, when I have it set at 3200, the Sekonic meter is showing it to be 3329 Kelvin. So it's just a little bit off, but you probably won't notice that much of a difference. Also important to note is there's no color spike at all. The CC lighting filter is hashed out. In other words, there is no adjustments that are needed for plus or minus green. And finally, here is the spectral distribution. All right, now let's take a look at daylight, 5600K. The average CRI is 96.8, and I got an extended CRI of 95.33. Very good scores. Also, the red is still a little bit low, but much better than it was in 3200 at 87.5. A good indicator for skin tone is the R15 rating, and it is 97.0. With the fixture at 5600K, the Sekonic meter is showing the actual Kelvin is 5558 Kelvin. Again, not very significant difference. And like in 3200K, no plus or minus green is needed. And finally, here is the spectral distribution. Here are the lux readings for the Matrix II RGBW. From 1 meter away at 3200K, I got 6040 lux. In 5600K, I got 6210 lux. When you're in color mode, the lux readings are different. Here are the lux readings from 0 to 360 degrees. All right, enough testing. Let's take a look at the fixture in action. All right, so here we are in the studio. I wanted to show you what it looks like to have a white seamless being lit up with the Matrix II RGBW. Now, the lighting that I have right now, I'm using, this is the Aperture 300D. It's set at about 50%. And this is the light cloth, IntelliTech light cloth, sorry. And it's set at around 40%. Both of them have diffusion. I'm using the light dome, the big light dome, the mother of all light domes. I love this softbox. It's actually beautiful. It's not really a soft box, but yeah, the softness that comes out of this is just really nice. I have the grid here. You can kind of see it a little bit, and it's fully covered up in its box to nicely diffuse the light. Now, what I did do is I used my Seikonic C700U meter. I took a meter of the 300D. This is giving me about 5,300 Kelvin roughly with the diffusion on there. I also have a 1/8 minus green in here, so there's a little bit of magenta that I clipped on to the inner diffuser. It's like a disc, and that is really giving me a nice balanced, no spike light. Now the light cloth, what I did was I took the reading from the 300D because it's daylight, that's not bicolor, and I dialed in that 5300 into the light cloth. This is a big deal for me. That's why I love to have at least a couple of bicolor lights on set, because you can start mixing and matching. Same thing going on here in the background. I have an Astra bicolor, and I kind of made this one a little bit, well, warmer. Wanted to have a little different look for a kicker, just playing around a little bit. But the star of the show is right here. And this is the Matrix II RGBW. Now I have it set at about 25% output. Any higher, I mean, it's super punchy, super bright, and it's doing a really nice job just kind of covering the whole screen. And I got a little bit of a kind of a hot spot in here, which I kind of like because that gives it sort of that radio look. You know, it looks kind of cool when it's a little bit brighter in the middle, and then it falls off as it's going off to the sides. But I'm telling you, this thing is so bright, you can just really crank up the entire look of it. As far as output and saturation. I'll show you, right now I'm set at full saturation. And let's just kind of go through, I'll dial through some of the colors. You'll see what it looks like. So here we go. This is basically 0 on the 360-degree color wheel. And as I move around, you'll see the colors changing. Some of these are really nice. The purple, the aqua. I mean, red's always great. So it looks really good. Get it back to that kind of a cool aqua color. I really like that a lot. That's really nice. All right, so I'm going to pop in. You're going to see what it looks like properly lit. All right, well, there it is. So I'm being lit again by the Aperture 300D and the light cloth IntelliTech light over here, and a little bit of that Astra action for a little scratch or kicker, whatever you want to call it. And it looks pretty good, and it's really versatile to be able to have just one light on the floor basically lighting up your background. Now think about that, as it's set at about 25%. So you could really just flood an area with light, with colored light, very easily with the Fiilex Matrix II RGBW. All right, well, that's a good sample of what color looks like. Let's go ahead and flip it around. I'll show you what hard light looks like, as well as ways to soften it. Okay, so here we are with a very harsh light. I feel like I'm going to be interviewed or hit by a lead pipe in the knee for some information. But I have the Matrix II RGBW light set at 5,400 Kelvin. I don't need to use any of the minus or plus green because, well, it doesn't need it. It's nailing it right now. And this is the only light I'm using other than my home job DIY KinoFlow 4-foot banks that are in the back. Each one of these has 4 KinoFlow bulbs in it. They're T8s. And they're just lighting up the background, just 2 of them. So you're getting a good idea of what just a single light, oh, I looked right into it, and now I'm seeing 4 little dots. It is bright. And it does have kind of that hard shadow. You can kind of see here on my nose. I have a pretty good sized nose, so I'll definitely give you a good shadow for you to see. But, you know, this isn't a way I would light. I mean, this is a very hard light. Hard light has its place, definitely not on the face. I need as much soft light as possible, and I think most of us do. We just look better when we are lit with soft light. But I wanted to give you an idea of what the Matrix II RGBW looks like when you're using it as a traditional light. And now, why don't we go ahead and flip it again. We're gonna put some diffusion in front of it. Maybe I'll do a whole setup so you can kind of see what it looks like with soft light. Okay, so here we are. I have the Fiilex RGBW Matrix II. It's about 1.5 feet behind a 4x4 frame that has 216 Lee diffusion, white diffusion in it. And then over here to the right, I have just a bounce board. It's right out of frame, right about there. And then up top on this side, I took the Astra that was over there, moved it over to the other side to kind of do a little bit of fill on the shadow side. So I'm getting some modeling. Looks pretty good. The camera's still set at ISO 200 at f4 with the 24-105 Canon lens. So looking pretty good. Now, the reason why I do it this way is because I don't have a lot of control with my lighting that I'm using for the seamless. So to get my seamless at around 85 so I can boost it up a little bit in post to get it really nice and punchy white, I kind of have that set already. I don't have diffusion on them. These aren't dimmable, so it's kind of, it is what it is, and then I set up around it. But all in all, I really do like the way it looks. I like the way the Astra's kind of just kicking in a little bit. It's not very high, just to give me a little bit of, a little tonality, a little color. I have it a little warmer, just to get that look. I don't know. We all do things differently, right? All right. Well, that's it. This is a good example of using the Matrix II RGBW as a key light. Well, that about covers it. I really like the Matrix II RGBW light by Fiilex. It's a punchy light. The colors are great, nice and saturated. The beam angle, well, that really is handy when you're trying to just flood an area with color or with light. It works really well. As a key light, if you bounce it, I find it a little bit harsh just to use it alone, but I don't really use any light that way. When I'm using a key light, I'm either bouncing it off like some foam core, put it in a softbox, or punch it through a 4x4 or 6x6. Those are the way I use a light for a key. But probably the more important aspect of that is that it's punchy. And I think this light is punchy enough to use that way. It is a little on the expensive side at $3,000, but the build quality is superb. It is built to spend many hours on set, moving from truck to scene, no problem. I think it's gonna really last a long time. All right, well that does it. I'm Eric Naso with Newsshooter.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.